Hey guys, I'm here with my good friend Sam4Soccer2, the jungler for Ghost Gaming. Here to talk about Worlds Phase 1, Phase 2, maybe looking forward to this next Worlds that's happening as well. So first of all, congratulations on winning Worlds in 2019. How's that feel now? I asked the same question to Neil, kind of have Worlds finalists back-to-back weeks, but how does it feel now, 6 months in? Now that Worlds is over, how are you feeling about it?
About Worlds, I mean, still
Yeah,
feel good about it, but I don't know about it specifically. Like, kind of just looking to the future, to the next Worlds, rather than like thinking about the past one.
sure. Have you finally turned on the RGB on your Worlds trophy at all?
I think it's actually a mess to figure out. I don't know,
Do
but
you even
I don't
put
think
you
I ever
don't put
figured
the
it out. Though.
batteries in there?
No, one of my friends tried to work it out, and I think he couldn't. I don't know.
Oh man, that's
It was
too
just
bad.
it was too annoying.
Sure. So phase one, and like basically you're coming in with a new team. You're the sort of lone change that happened to this
Yeah.
team. How is
Mhm.
that in terms of meshing with basically a team that's already put together that sort of has their roles defined and their relationships have sort of they know each other a lot better. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not saying obviously I'm sure you guys know each other pretty well anyway, but how did
Yeah.
that go at the beginning and now? How's it going anyway as well?
Um. Generally, it's definitely easier than like if you had a full new team of like completely new players that have never played together. Because I'm
Yeah.
just kind of fitting in. It's still like a jungle role, so it's I guess a little tougher than
Hmm.
just like maybe if you fit in a solo laner or something. But I kind of think that generally, if you just have a bunch of good players together, it'll be easy to just get used to each other. Because um, I don't know, just good players always. You don't necessarily think the same, but it's pretty easy to start to mesh.
Sure, yeah, and I'm sure
Uh,
everyone always like respects each other and their ideas.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's always
exactly.
and that helps, especially when you recognize each other's talent. And
Hmm.
I'm sure playing with other world champions is probably a good thing as well.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of that, I think we actually just think about the game pretty similarly as a whole. So that's also like a pretty easy like way to synergize it quickly.
Sure. All right, moving on to phase one. I know you guys didn't finish first in phase one, but I think it was a
Hmm.
relatively good, and especially with you guys winning phase one playoffs.
Yeah.
Is that something? Are you? I know Mike likes to talk about getting first seed a lot. Is that something that is also on the front of your list in terms of priorities for the phases? Is getting that first seed, or is it just mostly
Um.
looking towards the tournaments?
Yeah, I personally just mostly look towards the tournaments. I
Yeah.
think it's like a nice like accolade, I guess you could say, right?
Sure.
It's not too like obviously getting first is just good
Yeah.
in like any respect, but
Mhm.
it's definitely just less important because there's not like you don't really get too much from it aside from like seeding wise, I guess for some tournaments.
Well, I mean, this
Um,
tournament was kind of special because there's that choosing dynamic.
yeah, I guess that's true. That does bring another factor, which makes it a bit nicer. Um, but still, like I mean, you'd rather be choosing than not, I guess. But
Sure.
I don't think it's a big deal,
Yeah.
personally.
Do you think that basically the parity in the league now makes it so that as long as you get to the big dance, you have a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's always true. I guess like choosing is nice in the sense where you can just have good matchups against like certain teams
Yeah.
and worse matchups against others. But yeah, I think once you're there, just kind of it can be whoever's just feeling the most like is the team that ends up winning.
Sure. So speaking of the choosing dynamic in the playoffs, when I talked to
Mhm.
Aurora, he seemed to think that you guys might have been a little bit scared of Sanguine and were a little bit relieved to face off against SSG. Any comments on that?
I mean, I don't think that's true. I personally, we just kind of thought that they wouldn't choose us for sure,
Yeah.
and I think they're just both good teams, but we wanted to beat like SSG more so than Sanguine just because of how the way the season worked out.
Hmm. He,
Um,
he also seemed to think that you guys had been scrimming a little bit together because he felt that Sanguine had been taking some of your guys' tendencies, especially in
hmm.
terms of like maybe playing a little bit faster in the early game rather than just waiting for team fights.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do scrim them. I think they're one of the the teams we like to scrim the most, but we scrim like a good variety, I'd say, and it's
Sure.
not just like one team here or there. But
Of course.
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they took some tendencies for sure.
And keeping on with saying, I mean, they're basically like the newcomers here.
Yeah.
How do you feel like they've done? I mean, you're actually not that far removed from being a newcomer, as we'll probably talk about a little later on. But
Yeah.
how do you feel about these rookies coming in? They were the first seed actually, and they've been playing pretty well as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think you can't really ask for their first split to go better
Mm-hmm.
overall. I kind of expect them to drop off a little, and I guess they've started off the split not the best
Sure.
relatively to what they could have wanted. But I mean, they're just all really good players for sure, and I think they're definitely like a top half of the team, at least middle of the pack, like at the worst. But
Mm-hmm.
they definitely still have some improving to do for sure. Their playoffs performance wasn't the best, obviously. I think they just
Yeah.
got 3-0'd, right?
Yeah. They just got 3-0. Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah, I think mainly it was like a poor performance by Panatum, who like it was pretty surprising because he had like a really insane split, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think they just got to learn a little more, get a little more experience under the belt,
Sure. Okay, moving on to phase two, I guess. It's a really long phase. What do you think of this new 14-week triple round robin that we got going on? Is that something that piques your interest, or are you a little peeved that you have to play for so long? What do you how you feeling about
Personally, I think I don't care too much. I don't really think it's like super exciting or anything. But I don't think an extra like set for each team is that big of a deal necessarily for me. But I think like Mike and maybe some other people on my team at least have said like they personally don't like it. It's just a lot bigger chance for like burnout, throughout
it?
the split and things like that. Which I think it'll happen for sure for some teams and players.
Yeah,
It's just hard to stay motivated for that long
yeah.
and care
14
about every
weeks
single
is
game.
3.5 months basically. It's just
Yeah.
it's a really long time.
Yeah, I think it would be bad generally if like you were really hard, like wanted to win every single set, and you
Yeah.
like put your all into all of them. I
Mm-hmm.
think in that sense you kind of have to be a bit more relaxed during the split. Otherwise, you're definitely bound to get burned out.
Sure.
But yeah, I personally don't mind. I'm pretty like good at doing that type of thing anyway. So
Yeah, when I talked to Neil last week, he said like basically for the first 5 weeks, even if like you can experiment a little bit and
yeah,
test things out, because even if you don't win the sets necessarily, if you gain useful information, that can really help in
yeah,
getting
for sure.
hot closer to Worlds. And
Yeah,
like we've been talking about, the parity in the league is pretty. There's a lot of it, so if you get yourself there to Worlds, you got a chance.
yeah, agreed.
Um, so now let's talk a little bit about God picks in phase two. A lot of Nemesis on the in the picks and bans, and I think you're the only one who's played Mulan Jungle in phase two so far.
Yeah.
So why Mulan? I mean, is this something we really haven't seen from anyone else?
I don't know. I think I considered playing her a little last split.
Sure.
She's kind of just a fun god. She does a lot of early game damage.
Mm-hmm.
You can pressure pretty heavily with her, but I don't know. I don't think she's like OP or anything. I just think she's like pretty good, and there's certain things you can do with her that like other gods can't do. But I don't know. Honestly, I scrimmed with her once before I actually played her in that set.
I mean, you've
I
already
was like,
played her
yeah, I'm just feeling it.
twice so far this phase, so.
I played her once, I think, and Mike played her once.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Is how it works.
Yeah, that's my bad.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
saw two Mulans in the sets and
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, I think it's being played support
Yeah, I think Rangi also played
mostly.
support.
Yeah, I don't know if Aurora's played it or not. He's spammed it in ranked at the very least.
Yeah, well, he always spams the new ones in rank just to
Yeah,
get
that's
every
true.
1 to 10. So I don't know how much that really counts, but
Yeah.
I mean, Rangi picking it up means that it's probably a legit pick in those places. Has it sort of fallen off in solo? You think is it not working out too well there?
I think it's probably still viable there, honestly. I don't know. I think people are still trying to identify how the solo lane meta goes,
Yeah.
Still pretty new with like Era being squishier or whatever. I don't know. People are
Well,
just
and
trying
like
random
big
stuff. So
latch
later
shield
build.
changes too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. That was really big.
The sustain in the solo lane is going to be completely different now. So
Yeah. So people are still trying to figure out what the best picks are there, I guess.
yeah. Finally, talking about gods, what do you think about Tsukiyomi and the jungle potential that he might have. Have you had a chance to
Uh,
look at him at all?
no, I haven't really seen him much. I think like I've seen like a little gameplay, and his ult looks really cool. A bunch of his
Yeah,
abilities look cool, but I have literally no clue. I just have heard that he's like really strong right now.
sure.
Um, he definitely looks pretty interesting though, so I'm excited to play him. But usually I kind of wait till the guide comes out onto the actual like
Onto live.
live client,
Yeah.
yeah. And then even then, mostly I won't play him till like ranked even.
Oh, okay.
So maybe a little bit for there, or till go till I actually play it,
Sure,
or like
sure.
hard spam it at least.
Yeah, of course. Well, since there were a bunch of changes in the mid-season, hold on,
Mm.
let me get a drink of water real quick.
Yeah, you're good.
What are some of your favorite new items now that mid-season patch has come through and it's been a couple weeks that you had a chance to look at them?
Just for like jungle in particular,
Jungle
or
in particular, or just in general? I mean, I'm sure you've spammed some off-roll ranked and things like that too. Are there any
yeah.
items that are particularly feeling very good that you're enjoying a lot playing with and things like that?
I think in general, Solitaire is just kind of a fun item.
Yeah.
Pretty cheap, has a lot of good stats overall. So I think that's one of the ones I like for the jungle most relevant, I guess. And you can play in solo too. It's just like a fun item overall.
hmm What about
Um,
what about Golden Blade? Are you a big fan
yeah,
of the
I don't
Golden
really
Blade
like Golden
guys?
Blade that much. I think it's a little overrated. Steven still. I think the nerf maybe was necessary, but people still picking up a lot, and I think it's a bit overrated, but it's not like bad either.
Sure.
Um, I think for some reason I think Titans feels kind of good. I don't know if it's fun necessarily, but like the change for some reason still feels good, and I think Book of Thoth just feels good too.
Okay. And I know, speaking about the jungle, Rathan recently put out a video with the PK guys sort of explaining how the jungle shrine works.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys are focusing a lot on in terms of like being efficient at stacking that and claiming all the stacks? Is that something that's like you guys talk about on a regular basis, or that you guys try to
Um,
prioritize in any way?
maybe a little. Like honestly, right before that video came out, I like didn't know how the shrine worked the best myself. Like I figured it out a bit before the video came out, like a day or
Sure.
two, right? Like
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
And like that knowledge is good to have generally, but it doesn't really change that much, I don't think.
Yeah, because
Like I had
it's
an
just
idea,
like.
like I thought maybe it was per camp or whatever. Like I was like,
Mhm.
oh, blue's maybe bugged because they're only giving like one stack of it, or like
Yeah.
not a stack, like one like third of a stack or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like per minion, so that type of information doesn't help that much. It's like good to have an understanding, but doesn't change that much. I think it's good to like maybe focus jungle a little more, but you don't want it to like get in the way to ganks and stuff still. So it's still a
Yeah, is it not?
balance.
It's just like something extra on your like regular jungle path still.
But the shrine, yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's just one auto.
yeah.
Maybe I hit it a little too much sometimes, but it's pretty bad if it gets overstacked. So
I
just one
mean,
auto on the way to speed or backs is kind of worth it.
I feel like these videos are trying to emphasize that maybe you can optimize your jungle pathing to be able to take advantage of like fully stacking the shrine or things like that. Is that something that's been talked about at all, or is that something that is
Mm,
going to take a little more playing with and feel to sort of get how that goes? Because I imagine that takes like the communication of the whole team being like, all right, this camp is down, this camp is down, this camp is down. All right, now we know our jungle shrine should be fully stacked, right?
yeah, I don't know if you need to go that far
that's
necessarily.
that's going too
The
deep.
thing is, yeah, I think it's just so easy to hit. The shrine
Yeah,
is just one auto, right? That you
yeah.
don't need to like try to optimize it too much because
Okay.
like one auto really won't slow you down too much. Maybe if it was back to three autos in the price, you
Mm-hmm.
could try to, but even still, I don't think you need to go that far still.
Okay, that's good. I don't know. You never know how in depth the pros really go on some of these
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
so it's always good to ask, especially when there's other community content that is sort
Hmm.
of pushing people in that general direction.
Right, yeah.
I guess I have a couple changes about the first, or not couple changes, couple of questions about the first couple weeks of games, because
Yeah.
your team has actually played a couple more games than some of the other ones. You've had 3 sets so far,
Uh-huh.
and the Obey set, I think everyone expected you guys to win. Maybe people thought there would be a little more from Obey. Is that sort of what you felt as well?
Yeah, I thought so. Maybe both the times we've played them recently. like the one last split and this split,
Sure.
the sets were pretty like stompy.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I'd expect a little more, but it's not that easy at the beginning, like of big changes. Like kind of, I'm sure every team maybe thinks they have the meta down right away. Maybe not completely. Maybe some teams do think they're lost, but most of them won't be right in general. I don't even know if like we are that correct, or were then. I don't know, but it can be tough, and I think maybe they just had an unfortunate start. And still have potential to like pick it up from here. Like we talked about, it's a really long split, so it's not that big of a deal.
Right. Yeah, I know that when we were talking about Obey recently on my show, I think last week, we sort of noticed that they were picking like mages in solo, which is not something most other teams are doing. They might just be really leaning into using the first couple weeks to experiment and figure out what they can get away with and what they can do to, force the other teams to react in those ways. Speaking of it being a long phase and things like that, there seems to be kind of a little bit of sloppiness from you guys in a couple of these sets. I know Mike especially is a big proponent of running it down, but sometimes you run it down a little too hard. Especially. I mean, it feels like both of the games that you guys have lost have been like just a little bit of overcommitment to getting some objectives or getting some kills that sort of turns against you in the late game.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the good thing about like our play style is like we're always on the front foot normally, right?
Yep.
And we're the one looking for stuff. One's looking for stuff. So it feels like basically any game that we've lost or like end up being way closer, it's kind of on us to. It was on us to like we were the ones throwing,
Sure.
because we're the aggressors. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just maybe at the beginning of the split we only practiced like the week of those SPL games, the first week, and then I mean last week I don't know.
Well, I mean you win the sets, so you can't complain too much.
Yeah. As long as we're winning the sets, we're fine with it for now. Obviously, like towards Worlds, we'd like to be way cleaner and not making mistakes like that. But
right. Well,
we're not too worried at the moment. Yeah.
The time to clean it up. If there was any time to be sloppy, it would probably be early on in the phase.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, so. Okay, here's a question I had. You said you like to play on the front foot as a team, and is that something that influences your team comp, or do you feel like you could draft another team comp to be, let's say, a little more reactive, and you guys would still be able to play that play style relatively successfully?
I mean, I think we can play any play style pretty successfully. Like, there's a lot of games where I think our comps like are later game focused, but we're still the ones being proactive and getting leads with those comps, and it makes it look like we're just like hard picking for it, but we're not really. It's just kind of they're giving us openings that we're taking advantage of. And those are the games that end up being like
taking every little inch, and it adds up to being a mile.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you have like a comp that's more focused later games.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of the times those are the games that are the most stompy. It seems like for us.
Sure.
Not always, but like I could be like a Hunbats or something focused a little more late, and you just get a couple picks, and then the game's kind of just snowballs really quickly because. I don't know the full reason, I guess, but
do you guys like actively look for those type of snowbally things? Like if you see that you're getting a lead in a certain lane, is that something that you prioritize to snowball that lead?
Yeah, I mean we're always trying to just push the lead farther, whether it's like continuing your aggression in one spot, or maybe you think they're gonna aggress somewhere, and if you shut that down while your other like lane's going well still, then you kind of just close them out completely. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a bunch of ways to push leads, and we're kind of always looking to be the aggressors.
Sure.
At least in positions we can.
Yeah, I know you said you sort of have been playing a lot of later game team comps more, but it seems like your playstyle is always be aggressive as early as possible.
Yeah.
Whatever, not even take whatever lead, but just like aggressively pursue the lead. And I think a lot of times people, especially like the casters, sort of tend to just stick with, rival is like the best at the early game, which I think you guys are the best at the early game, but you're also picking for these late game team comps and stuff too. Is that something, do you guys hear that noise and be like, we're good at the early game? Or I know like last year on PK, they were like, these guys are the best at base defense and things like that. Is that something that you think about at all in like, does that affect your thinking also in terms of like moving throughout the phase and and like making changes to the meta, or like, if
Not
something,
really, I don't think.
yeah, you just are like doing your own thing for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, like you'll hear I think they overemphasize it and say like, oh yeah, if you like get these guys to late game, like they're not that good. But I don't really think that's true.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, yeah, you like notice what they're saying, but it doesn't really change how you view the game, really.
Okay. That's interesting because I feel like a lot of fans sort of, I don't know if they are like waiting on the words of the caster, but there's
Mhm.
a little bit of that's sort of our window into the world, so to
Right?
speak.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I think a lot of fans get those opinions, and it's kind of, I don't know. You wonder if those are actually true and real all the way. Like, I'm sure there's
Yeah,
a kernel of truth to it, but there are probably a lot of other factors that go into some of these things.
yeah, for sure. It makes sense how like those I guess storylines you could call them like are made and like continued, but
Mm-hmm.
they're definitely not always like, in my opinion, completely true.
Sure.
Like you said, maybe it starts with like a true point, like yeah, we like to play early game, but then it's like develops to like, oh, that's all they can do, right?
Right.
They get
Right.
behind, they're just bad.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I know we touched on it a little bit, but
Mhm.
do you seriously consider that Obey and Renegades and some of these, maybe even E United right now? I know two of these teams have taken games off you, but it looked a little bit fluky. Like, I don't want to give them too much credit because
Yeah.
you guys were definitely in control both of those games. Do you think that those teams still have a chance, and that it's just there's a long time to see it play out, or are we starting to see a little bit of separation in terms of like which teams are at the bottom end, which teams are in the middle, and which teams are the cream rising to the top?
Um. I mean, yeah, there will probably always be some bit of separations, but it doesn't mean they don't have chances either. I think like the biggest issue with those teams is mainly consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was kind of our issue last year on SK.
Yeah.
Uh, where like I think they could be really good. Maybe all their players are playing well at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and it just hasn't been happening for some reason. But it doesn't mean that like the right timing can't come for those teams, like at the end of the year or whatever.
Sure. Sure.
Maybe the chances aren't that high
Mm-hmm.
generally, but like it doesn't mean it's impossible either. So
Do you think that matters more than sort of even your seeding in the phases? Like, if you sort of get hot in the qualifiers or get hot at the end of the season going into the qualifiers, does that, I don't know, it seems like that sort of stuff helps teams a lot more going into Worlds than just like being at the top of the league and maybe like hosting for those last 2 weeks.
um I think it's like both are pretty important. Like obviously if the team's first and they get hot at the same time, like
Yeah,
they'll have the bracket like favoring them as well as like just being like obviously hot at the same
that is
time.
true.
So like
That is true.
it's a bit of both. Because like just because the team gets hot, like at the end of the split doesn't mean they're gonna win guaranteed. That just means they'll do
Sure,
well.
sure, sure.
So yeah, I don't think it's just like one or the other.
All right. So now here are some questions about like your career on the whole. Some of
Sure.
which I have gotten from Twitch chat. So
Okay.
this first one is: do you feel like you were gonna make it to the SPL after your first season on Eager? Because that Eager squad, I'm sure, was a little bit dysfunctional with everything that went on. With Zap leaving, and it was kind of
Um.
weird. And your first sort of SPL action was not the greatest showing. To be
Yeah.
completely honest. So how did you feel after that first taste of the SPL?
Um. I don't know if I thought one way or not if I'd make it back. I think it was definitely disheartening overall
Yeah.
in the sense that it went like how it worked. Like I think I still feel a little like wronged by that situation maybe
Mm-hmm.
because I think generally I played the scrims pretty well, and then like maybe SPL games weren't as well.
Right.
I had some like good ones and some bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like this against, I think I played 3 sets total,
Right. Right.
and one was against like United where I had a terrible set. I think
Hmm.
once maybe Soar was it, and we went 1-1. I had like one good game, one bad one, and then the other set I was already like set to leave beforehand,
Yeah.
and it was one of the bottom teams, and I think like we stomped them really hard.
Hmm.
And like that I had a good set, but uh, generally I just think like since I was a new player, I played like on a really like lower end like like I don't even know what you call it, like comp team, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like it wasn't too much aside from just scrimming here and there, or just scrimming a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so like my experience was very limited at that point, so I think it just seems a bit strange to like pick me up and then kind of like drop me almost instantly in my mind, you know.
Yeah.
So it was a bit weird a situation for me, but I didn't really think whether or not I'd get in after, I guess. Um,
Were you just
I
sort
just
of
kind of went
like?
back.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I went back to like the CC or whatever and just
Yeah.
kept like grinding, I guess. I don't know, just hoping for the best.
Yeah. Do you feel that uh it was just like too short of an opportunity, or
Yeah,
were you also? I'm sure you were probably thankful for, getting the chance as well.
yeah, you're thankful for sure, but at the same time, like I just think if you're picking up a player with like basically no experience,
Yeah.
you should either be in it for like the I don't know if long haul necessarily because you want like
But at least for like the year or something like that,
yeah maybe at least a full
or a
split, you know,
phase.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, a
Sure.
phase.
Um. Well, since those eager days, and even I think during those eager days, because Aurora was on that team, you sort of had
Hmm.
the fortune of teaming up with a lot of veterans, at
Yeah,
least
for
NA
sure.
veterans. Are there things that you might have learned from them? Like now, especially teaming with like Mike and Max and Twig.
Yeah,
Those are all, they've been in the league for years and years, and even like Zap before, and
yeah.
Aurora on Eager, things like that. So like, what are some of the things you might have learned from these people who've been in the league for a while?
Um, I mean, generally, if I had to pick like one person, it'd have to be Zap, who's like taught me the most about the game and like how you play it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I learned that much from the Eager team in particular. I probably did that I don't actually know I learned just because
Hmm.
like playing at a higher level, right?
Sure.
And
Sure.
just
Yeah.
scrimming against good teams. I'm sure I learned a lot in that span.
Yeah.
But like about stuff that I generally like definitely know that I've learned. It's definitely like Zap on Trifecta's probably like just the whole time team with Zap. I mean, I definitely learned a lot from like everybody on the team too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe Zap and Neo, I'd say I learned the most from. Even though Neo maybe was a newer, well, he played for a while, but I guess he wasn't in
No,
the
he
comp
was
scene
also
as
he was
long
relatively new too. I
for
think
like the actual pro scene. Yeah.
when he got on that trifecta squad too.
Hmm.
So, what about like
Um.
Mike or Max or Twig in this on this new team? Have they
Yeah,
made
yeah,
any
for
impressions
sure.
on you?
You definitely can pick stuff up from basically any teammate you play from,
Sure.
and from them, I'd say I've definitely learned stuff. But it can't like the room for it to be as much isn't there because I'm, I guess you could say, just more developed, right at this point
Well, and also
compared.
there's like 2 years that you spent with that team, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly, and
how
it
many
hasn't been
plays
that
is
long
that?
here.
Yeah,
But
only
yeah, I've
like
definitely
six
learned stuff
months.
for sure.
Sure.
I mean, when you're just playing around good players who have played for a while, you're just gonna pick up stuff.
Yeah, yeah. As someone who sort of like came up through the amateur scene and the SML, I think as it was
Hmm.
called back in the day,
Yeah.
how do you feel like the scene is doing now after the changes that have been made and things like that, and even like other amateur scenes? Do you think that scene has sort of picked up a little bit, or has it fallen off? What are your thoughts on like the
Hmm.
players, or are you paying attention at all?
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if I'd say picked up or fallen off. There was a point where the amateur scene was doing pretty well, I think.
Say that
I don't
again.
know exactly. There was like a point where the amateur scene was doing very well,
Yeah. Okay.
like maybe season like what was it, four-ish or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And beforehand,
Yeah.
I think it was really good, and then it dropped off a little, and I think it has picked up again. I think just inevitably, like the EU scene's probably struggling a bit,
Because there's no EU Pro League.
right? Because
Yeah.
of the moving to NA,
Yeah.
it just makes them like they're just bound to struggle. And I
Mm-hmm.
think like it's a little weird this year to talk about it because like there's tournaments that would have been held like at Hires, I think, for
Right, and
the
COVID
amateur
has
teams to
thrown a
travel
wrench
to.
into everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So because of um like the quarantine and everything, kind of put a little bit of stop to that. But I think generally it's doing pretty well, and there's definitely some like good players who like haven't really had a chance yet to come up that like you could see do well probably.
Sure. Are there any players you want to maybe give a shout out to in the amateur scene that might
Um,
that you think are primed for a
I,
come up? I know
I
we saw
mean,
like genetics sort of
yeah, I think
move in
genetics would be a
between a little
good
bit.
one from EU. I don't know EU too well. I guess there's like Joni,
Yeah.
maybe, or like Julio, maybe Angry. I think he's a mid laner. He's pretty good,
Hmm.
probably.
I mean, I think the EU
Um,
guys is probably gonna have to wait until next year at
yeah,
any rate,
it'll
because
probably be hard. Yeah.
you know, if unless there's a
Um,
vaccine or something, this
yeah.
the whole situation is kind of screwed.
For
So
yeah, for sure. And then for NA, I guess I'd probably say like you gotta say Pagon in there. Stewart, I think, had a really good showing when he subbed in
I think so as
against
well.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's a name worth mentioning. Um, I'm not sure who else. Maybe somebody like Erupt Crimson.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely good players, but like, I guess for people who like haven't actually gotten shots yet,
Hmm.
those would be like the main ones, maybe.
We probably should have talked about this when we talked about United, but what did you think about Guy J coming up and Snoopy moving to support? Is that something that you expected at all, or what are your thoughts on that?
Um,
And how do you think they did playing against you guys?
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty close with a lot of the people on that team, so
Hmm.
I guess I somewhat expected it based on like the reason. It's just hard because I guess they didn't feel there were that many good support options
Right,
after like
especially
genetics.
yeah, especially with genetics not being able to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their next best thought obviously was to swap Snoopy over and get an ADC, and I think Gaji probably was a good choice for that. I guess we talked about Stewart too, but I definitely thought Gaji would be a good player, and I think he had played on really high ping too.
Hmm.
So putting him on lower ping helps with that.
Sure.
But they just have a lot to learn still. Obviously, Snoopy role swapping and then Gaiji playing SPL for the first time. It's just going to take some time. I think it's like probably the best choice they could have gone for, like knowing all the factors, right? But
Sure.
and how they've played so far, I think it's been fine. Like I think against us, they were definitely like not bad. I think Scream had like a really good set, and that helped them a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like Guy J in particular had the best set, or some of the other players, but
I mean,
their team's
SPL
just going to take
debut,
some time to
right?
develop.
So
Yeah, yeah. I think he's looked fine. He definitely has some room to improve for sure, though.
sure. All right, I think I'm all out of questions here, Sam. Is there anyone you want to shout out or give props to, or anything you want to soapbox or rant about? Is there, the floor is yours to say whatever you need to say.
Yeah, I mean, just shout out to all the Ghost fans out there. Always got to give them a shout out.
Yeah, shout out to our
Basically,
analyst Frost, who is a
yeah.
#1 Ghost fan.
Yeah, I think that's about it, though.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a lot for doing this interview. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
It was great fun.
Yeah.
I hope the rest of the season goes well for you, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can see each other at Worlds this year.
Yeah, hopefully, man.
Oh.
Yeah,
Right,
appreciate
man.
it, though.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
Yep, catch you later.